Sit down and grab your lunch. It's time for the Bolts Brown Bag, the only show where you make the call.
And welcome to a special game day edition of Bolts Brown Bag live from our 10 News Cafe. The San Diego Chargers Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight at 5:30 at Qualcomm Stadium. And I believe this is our first game day edition of Bolts Brown Bag since the very first episode last season when the Chargers took on the Arizona Cardinals in the season opener in Glendale last year. So we get to do a Monday Night Football, first of 4 primetime games for the San Diego Chargers. And back this week after missing last week is John Gennaro from the Mighty 1090 and BoltsFromTheBlue.com. John, it's good to have you sitting there again. So I guess we can get a little thoughts from you on the Cleveland game since now that you're here and, you missed last week's show.
I did end up a little bit.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Got your mic?
I ended up mostly skimming the Cleveland game because I didn't see it live, and then I was sort of watching it online. What I saw, I liked. I liked the performance of the offensive line. I thought the pass rush looked pretty good. Obviously, the Chargers still fighting through some injury issues that are there. It's a little sad when you almost go into overtime against the Cleveland Browns, but a win is a win is a win. I thought the Chargers did a lot of good things, and specifically Phillip Rivers was great.
Well, and the Browns came back and won on the road yesterday against the Baltimore Ravens. So
Yep.
they're showing they're certainly not a complete doormat. I think it lends a little added credibility to the Chargers' win last week.
Well, it depends on how you feel about the Ravens.
Well, and it depends now how you feel about the Steelers. Same division, another 2-2 team now, that the Chargers are going to be playing tonight without their starting quarterback. To me, this isn't the scary Steelers teams that I think Chargers fans remember. This is the first time the Chargers and Steelers have played since 2012, Norv Turner's last season, when they actually went into Heinz Field and beat the Steelers in an otherwise very disappointing 7-win season for the Chargers. It was kind of an odd game, but we remember those Steelers teams, Super Bowl contenders, perennial playoff contenders. This isn't a bad Steelers team, but it's certainly no powerhouse by any means.
Well, and they're missing arguably their 2 best players. What you were always afraid of with the Steelers was their defense, which, despite the fact they still have James Harrison somehow, Ryan Shazier, who's definitely their best defensive player, out for this game. Ben Roethlisberger, who's really the guy who scared you because you knew that even if the pass rush could get to him, even if your defense could play well, he could break a tackle, he could make a big play, he could essentially win the game by himself. Now you don't have to face either one of those guys. Going to be a big game for the Chargers tight ends without Shazier out there, and the pass rush stands a chance of forcing Michael Vick into making some mistakes.
Anytime the Chargers play the Steelers, I can't help but think back to January of 1995.
Okay.
At Three Rivers Stadium when the Chargers qualified for their only Super Bowl. So I thought for today's poll question, which we have right along the right side of the screen there, if you're following along at 10news.com/BoltsBrownBag, what do you think was the biggest win in Chargers history? The biggest win for the Chargers. And I put 4 possibilities up there. I think, to me, and you can choose anything, but to me it has to be a significant victory. Now, the 1963 AFL Championship, which I, of course, don't remember, long before my time, but the one title that this team has actually won when they routed the Boston Patriots. The 1981 playoff win over the Miami Dolphins, which to me is the greatest game the Chargers have ever played, and certainly it's one of the greatest games in NFL history, but is it the biggest win as well? I think that you can kind of debate a little bit, so that was my second choice. The win over the Steelers to send them to the Super Bowl, Tony Martin touchdown catch, Dennis Gibson knocking down the pass. And I added one of my personal favorites, the win over Peyton Manning and the Colts in the 2007 playoffs that got them to the AFC Championship, beating a generational quarterback in his stadium with your backup quarterback coming in at the end of the game. Yeah, Darren Sproles doing amazing things. LT got hurt in that game. It was I thought, a big, significant win of this era, and those were my 4 choices. So that's what's on there.
I'm fairly young. I'm not that much younger than you, but I didn't become a Charger fan until pretty late, till 98. So the only one of these games that I experienced personally was the Colts playoff game. So that's the one I probably want to vote for here because I remember jumping and screaming and freaking out at the end of that. But talking to other Charger fans, knowing other Charger fans that were around for it, nothing really tops that win against the Steelers in the playoffs. and there's always going to be a special place in Charger fans' hearts for that game.
Hugo tweets in. He votes for the 63 AFL Championship, so my guess is he's one of the longtime Chargers fans out there.
Right.
Mikey tweets in. He says, my personal favorite as a fan watching was the OT first-round playoff home win against the Colts in January 09. Remember, that was an 8-8 team that just barely snuck in with 4 straight wins,
right,
and then beat the Colts at home in overtime on the Darren Sproles touchdown. That was an exciting home win, maybe the best home playoff win for the Chargers.
That game was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a good one. So tonight, though, is not a playoff game, but it is a primetime game, and I love that it's not just about the fans getting excited for a primetime game. You know, players actually get a little extra juice about playing one as well, and that was something they were talking about this week at Chargers Park, players and coaches.
I think definitely there's that added incentive. You're that last game of the week. You know, all your buddies, wherever they are throughout the league, are watching you, and you're on national television.
It's your rep that's on the line. You know, everyone's watching. You know, you're the only game on. So they say you got to go out there and put your best foot forward.
This is Melvin Gordon's first primetime game like this, his first taste of the spotlight in the NFL. So we'll see how he reacts. Still looking for his first career touchdown as well. But it'd be fun to score it on Monday Night Football against the Steelers.
Also, it may not be a playoff game, but it may be almost as important as a playoff game because the Chargers going 3-2 here puts them in second place in the division and only 2 games, I believe, behind the Denver Broncos, who are building an outstanding lead. If they want to compete for the division in any way, shape, or form, they cannot continue to lose ground to the Broncos. They have to win tonight.
Yeah, to me, I know it's still early in the season, but if you fall 3 games back of Denver at this point,
with that defense,
the only way to catch up from a 3-game deficit, even with more than 10 games left, is to sweep the head-to-head series against a team.
Right.
Okay, well, that's possible, but
not
consider
probable.
this. The Broncos are now, I believe, 19-1 against AFC West opponents since Peyton Manning took over as quarterback.
And we know what that one
was. The one was the Chargers winning in Denver, but if you were counting on winning twice against the Broncos to get back into the divisional race, then you're already playing for the wild card. So to me, you got to win today or you're playing for the wild card. Plus, if you lose, then you're already a leg down in the wild card race against one of the teams, the Steelers. You might be battling out in a tiebreaker at the end. So, I mean, this game is really important for a lot of reasons, despite the fact that it's only week 5 of the season.
Yeah, and that one win over the Broncos for the Chargers was kind of a weird circumstance because they had an older team. It was a Thursday night game. It was a short week. The older team came out looking beaten down, looking old, looking worn. The Chargers took advantage of that. Now the Broncos are younger, more tenacious, rely less on Peyton Manning and that offense. They're going to be a tough team to beat. Not just, twice. They're going to be a tough team to beat once. So you have to keep pace with them now and hope that you can get a little bit lucky as the season goes along.
All right, as we move along, we're going to have a little fun today. We'll talk, of course, more about the matchup. We also have some grades here. We have some letters out.
Okay.
And we're going to grade the Chargers position by position over the first quarter of the season. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary, special teams, and coaching.
I like it.
And we're each going to give our grades coming up. I just lost my.
Ben, do you need me to carry the show while you screw around with your microphone?
Mike just went out there, so I'm switching. Right. It's calling an audible here from one microphone to the other.
Oh, wait, they may have turned me off now.
Now you're gone?
Oh, no.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
All
okay,
right,
no, this is fun. This is live webcasting at its finest.
You did say we were going to have fun today.
Hey, we're absolutely back. So what was I talking about? Okay, we got our grades. We're going to give those out. That's going to be a lot of fun. But also, we're going to talk about the matchup. In fact, not just your and my opinions, but a few minutes ago, I had a chance to talk with the beat writer covering the Chargers for the Union Tribune, Michael Gelkin, to get some of his thoughts on today's matchup against the Steelers. I caught up with him on FaceTime just a little while ago. Well, Michael, first of all, what are you hearing in terms of Antonio Gates returning to the field today? Obviously, the Chargers have to clear a roster spot to get him on the 53-man and on the field tonight.
Yeah, Chargers very excited to get Antonio back. They feel like their tight ends, Ladarius Green, John Phillips, have done an admirable job. There's only one guy who can do what Antonio Gates does, and that is the man that will be getting back tonight against the Steelers. So they have to clear a roster spot for him, but one guy they won't have available is Stevie Johnson, the slot receiver. So don't be surprised to see the Chargers ease back Antonio, have a lot of personnel groupings where he and Ladarius Green on the field at the same time to make the most of the personnel they have, considering Johnson will be unavailable.
Steelers, of course, are without Ben Roethlisberger. They'll go with Michael Vick at quarterback. But how big of a deal is that, knowing the kind of running game that they have and the trouble that the Chargers have had stopping the run this season?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge test against Le'Veon Bell. And Mike Vick, you have to respect what he can do with his legs. So minding the rush lanes will be extremely important for the Chargers front seven. This is a heck of a test, between Le'Veon Bell at running back and Antonio Brown at wide receiver. Pittsburgh presents two of arguably the most dynamic players at those respective positions. So Chargers catch a break, though, without Ben Roethlisberger. Vick only had 4.8 yards per attempt last week in his first start against the Ravens. Roethlisberger had over 10 yards per attempt by comparison in his 3 starts this season. So we'll see what the matchup and how it plays out.
I think when people think of the Steelers, they think, they're going to beat you with their toughness and they're going to push you around. That's not exactly what this kind of Steelers team is built off of, though, is it?
No, it's not. Not to say they're totally finesse and aren't capable of grinding out a win or doing some things defensively, but you look at the Chargers offense, even without Stevie Johnson, I think this is a team that should be able to move the ball against. And Danny Woodhead, Melvin Gordon, we're going to see how the Chargers devise his backfield. Melvin's still looking for his first rushing touchdown or first touchdown period. And you better believe that Melvin is well aware of the success Todd Gurley is having, the number 1 overall running back with St. Louis Rams. So Melvin wants to get on the board. He wants to have a 100-yard rushing game for the first time in his career. Whether or not that comes tonight, we'll find out.
I know the Chargers will say every game is a must-win, but at least from our perspective, looking at the AFC West standings, with the Broncos now 5-0, if the Chargers lost this game, we're 3 games back. That's a huge mountain to climb, even this early in the season. You probably would need to sweep your head-to-head with the Broncos, and that hasn't happened much with Peyton Manning around. In fact, they've only lost once to an AFC West team since he joined the Broncos.
A huge hole it would put the Chargers in if they lose tonight, and not only because of the fast start the Broncos are in, but you look at what's coming next week. The Chargers go on the road and face an undefeated Packers at Lambeau Stadium. That is going to be one heck of a matchup. You don't want to go into it at 2-3. Right now, the Chargers are 2-2, and hey, we're still into this thing, they can say, but it goes from 2-2 to 2-4 potentially in a blink of an eye. It's good to get that first game out of the way tonight.
From terrible towels straight to cheeseheads. Michael, appreciate your time, and enjoy the game tonight. Thanks. All right, that was Michael Gelkin from the Union Tribune, beat writer covering the Chargers. We talked a little bit about Antonio Gates, and, he's not on the 53-man roster yet, so assuming he's going to play tonight.
Well, they announced right before we came on here that Adrian Phillips was being released so that they could sign Gates before the game.
They have cleared the spot.
They have cleared the spot. He will be there. I guess they just wanted to get as many practices as they could out of Adrian Phillips, but Gates will play tonight.
I think if you had asked me if one Phillips was going to be released to make room for a tight end, I would have said John
Phillips,
the tight end, who was already released once this year. But he's come back, played pretty well, actually, the last couple of weeks in Antonio's absence. So.
And I think that's why he earned his roster spot, despite the fact that he lost the roster spot in preseason and training camp by not performing well. He's answered the bell when he's been called on so far in the first few games.
I would be disappointed if all of a sudden Ladarius Green was just gone. From the offense now that Antonio Gates is back. But we haven't yet seen Mike McCoy kind of effectively and Frank Reich mix those two guys together in the same offensive set. At least I haven't seen it so far.
Right, and I don't expect to see a lot of it these next few games, I think, as the season goes on, perhaps. But one of the reasons I think John Phillips is on this roster is with them missing Stevie Johnson, Malcolm Floyd coming back from an injury. They're a little thin at wide receiver. I could see them going with some 2 tight end sets. What John Phillips gives you, at least what he's supposed to give you, is a semblance of some blocking. So the defense doesn't quite know if you're running or you're passing. If it's Gates and it's Green out there as your dual tight ends, then they know it's a pass play. What I'd be interested to see in this game and next week is whether or not Ladarius Green or even Antonio Gates gets lined up as a slot wide receiver a few times, because they could definitely play that position, and that doesn't tip your hand as much as to what you're doing.
Well, I think the one thing that's good is that even though Gates is back, hopefully the Chargers aren't simply saying, okay, you've got to be prime time, 100% Hall of Fame Antonio Gates in your first game out.
Fresh legs, man.
Fresh legs is good, and maybe he'll have a terrific game, but at least according to Antonio, he's not going in with the mindset that he has to do everything his first time back.
I wouldn't dare put that much pressure on myself. So my whole thing is that I just need to come back and whatever it is that the coordinator wants, whatever position, whatever role he wants me to be in, just try to do that to the best of my ability, and things will be fine. We can find a way to get a win. I think that's the most important thing.
Just do your job. Go out there, be Antonio Gates. Just his presence on the field alone, to me, makes the job of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that much harder.
Well, and I think really where he's going to come into play is on those 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6 downs where the Chargers haven't done as well these past few weeks as they have in the past. They've gone a little bit with Danny Woodhead, maybe Keenan Allen in those situations with mixed results. Stevie Johnson got a couple of those opportunities. But when it's not necessarily a 3rd and 10, but one where Gates can go 5 yards up, find the soft spot in the zone, sit there, catch the ball, and fall over and pick up the first down, I'm willing to say we're going to see that 3 or 4 or 5 times tonight.
All right, John, before we get to handing out the grades for the first quarter of the season, want to update our Bolts Brown Bag picks contest because I had maybe the most frustrating week. I don't want to complain because I've been doing great this season.
Okay.
But I had a 2-touchdown lead in all 3 of my games in the fourth quarter and only ended up winning 1 of them.
You did.
In the end because the Bears rallied to beat the Chiefs and, of course, the Bengals came back to beat the Seahawks in overtime. So Cardinals held on. They destroyed the Lions. So I got the 2 points, but that was it for this week. You only got the 1 point on the Patriots.
Hey, I think the Titans should have won that game, and the Jaguars.
Yeah, I do too.
And the Jaguars are very competitive, despite the fact that it slipped through their fingers at the end.
We both could have asked for more. Chris, I thought the Raiders pick was inspired, and if not for a terrible pass by Derek Carr in the fourth quarter, he probably would have gotten those 2 points.
And he was only, I think, a point and a half off.
Yeah, Packers were an easy winner, so he's got the Steelers tonight, a chance to get back in at 3 big points still on the line, but I still got the 23-18-14 lead now.
It's a pretty commanding lead you have.
Right now, it's still early in the season. Okay, let's get to the grades. This is the fun part now. 1 quarter of the season. I want to go position by position, and we have the exciting graphics that we've created just for this segment. So
I like it.
Let's start with the grade for the quarterback. I'm going to go first. Phillip Rivers, to me, is getting the A-. A-. Almost, as good as you can hope for from a quarterback. Leads the NFL in passing yardage. A couple of bad picks, a few too many turnovers to get the straight A. And if you're the quarterback, wins and losses go more on your shoulder than anyone else. And the Chargers are just 2-2. They're not 4-0. So I can't give them the straight A or an A+, but A- for Phillip Rivers.
First of all, you're a crazy person.
I'm a crazy person.
Right, because you just said wins and losses go more on the quarterback than anybody else, then said they're 2-2, and then gave them an A. I'm going to be a little bit smarter. I'm going with a B. I'm going with a B strictly because Rivers has had 2 good games and 2 bad games, and that should equal out to a C. I'll give you that.
All right,
but he's been so good in the 2 wins that I think I bump him up from a C to a B.
Well, there's only one of us wearing a Rivers jersey here, so.
and one of us is a crazy person who's completely unfair and grading on a wrong scale.
All right, let's go to running backs. Melvin Gordon, to some people, has been disappointing just because he hasn't been used as much as you would want a first-round draft pick to be used. He hasn't gotten into the end zone yet. He hasn't put up a big 100-yard game yet. But Danny Woodhead is also a running back on this team. So at the very worst, I got to give him a C+ because Danny Woodhead does a lot for this team. This grade could go up quite a bit, I would think, as the season goes along as well. They haven't really done anything bad. Gordon had the 1 fumble. Otherwise, the ball security's been good. C+, and I think I'm being almost a little too harsh because I know if I gave him a B, everyone would just scream like, oh, no, Melvin Gordon's been terrible so far this year.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and make the people scream. I'm going with a B-, and my reasoning is similar to yours, which is Melvin Gordon had the 1 fumble. Outside of that, the running backs have not had a lot of issues. They haven't made a lot of mistakes. As far as runners, they haven't done much of anything. But you could argue that Danny Woodhead has been the best offensive player this year outside of Phillip Rivers. That, to me, bumps them, again, up from C to B just based on Woodhead's prowess as a receiver.
All right, for me, receivers, including the tight ends, have been a very strong spot on this team as well. They've overcome the loss of Antonio Gates. Keenan Allen is among the league leaders in passes caught and yardage caught as a receiver. Danny Woodhead catches a lot of passes out of the backfield as well. B+ for the receivers so far this year.
You know what? I'm going to stick with you. I'm going B+ on that because, hold it up for me, please. I didn't realize when we originally came up with this list, I didn't realize we were throwing in wide receivers with the tight
Yeah,
ends.
just pass catchers, receivers.
But, I had a B for wide receivers because every single one of these guys, none of them are spectacular. There's no Julio Jones, and there's no A.J. Green, but they've been solid. Up and down the group of receivers, they've been solid. And I think Ladarius Green and John Phillips have performed above expectations.
All right, offensive line. It's hard to judge because we haven't seen a lot of health on the offensive line. So I'm grading a bit on a curve here. They've had, I thought, 2 pretty good games, or at least a really good second half against the Lions. I thought they had a good game against the Browns last week in the win.
Okay.
Obviously, injuries played a part in not very good performances against the Bengals and the Vikings. So I give them a C- because I just felt too bad with the amount of injuries and how tough, like DJ Fluker just being out there is almost a miracle.
Yeah.
The last couple of weeks. It seems like that would be really
and playing
snotty
great,
of me to give him like a D.
Playing great,
yeah, exactly. So C-.
I like how you comment on my grades before I even make them.
I haven't commented on anything.
Well,
snotty.
I'm
snotty of you to give him a D, John.
I'm apparently going to be snotty about it. I'll give him the D. And really, this is me being nice because I think they've performed to the standard of an F or a D-. Here, wait, where's the plus? I'll give him a plus.
The plus is
and be nice about it. I'll give him a D+, and that is strictly because of injuries. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here and not give them the F because that's how bad they've been. It is amazing that Phillip Rivers is still healthy, and the running game, as we said, hasn't gotten anything done because there's been no lanes to run in at all.
All right, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. We'll start with the D-line. Corey Liuget. He still hasn't made any big plays this year. I mean, he gets double-teamed a lot because he's by far the best defensive lineman the Chargers have.
Right.
Kendall Reyes is actually, I think, playing better than we've seen him in a while.
He has.
Hustling. He's been out there. Haven't seen much from anyone else, and the run stopping has been bad.
How snotty of you.
That's a D.
Oh, I guess they're not injured, so it's not snotty.
No, yeah, D. D for the D-line.
I'll take that as well. D also gets a D-line. I don't know if they're trying to do that, but it works. I think Kendall Reyes is playing a little bit better. I think Darius Philon has been good. Ryan Carruthers has been a tremendous surprise, and I think he's arguably their most valuable or at least highest performing defensive lineman this year. That being said, you're not getting anything out of them. Like you said, Corey Liuget's not doing much. He's getting double and triple teamed. Carruthers is helping with the run game, but you're getting no pressure on the quarterback. They're not sealing the edge at all. There's just not a lot coming from that group.
By the way, Philon I saw was a late add to the injury report yesterday.
Oh, no.
Questionable, because why not? Just throw one more on there.
Sure.
Make it 14. So we got another questionable out there.
Right.
Linebackers. This was a tough one for me to grade.
It is.
I mean, you've seen some great moves, athleticism out of Melvin Ingram going after the quarterback. You've seen Manti Te'o just be in the right position like every time.
Yep.
But then
Can't
miss
tackle.
half of the tackles out there. Donald Butler started the season well and has kind of regressed back into last season. I'm so confused that I just said C. I don't know.
We're on the same page.
C?
I'll
Okay.
take the C from you.
All right.
And my favorite thing, and I actually came up with it myself, but I'm sure it's not original, is that Manti Te'o is like a Ferrari that you bought online and showed up and it doesn't have an engine. he looks great, and you're really proud of yourself when you bought it until you go to start it up and you realize that it just can't get you from point A to point B and you wasted your money. That C is a combination grade. I think the outside linebackers get an A or an A-. I think the inside linebackers get a D, D-, maybe even in the F category, because outside of Denzel Perriman, who deserves more snaps, and I hope he gets more snaps, they've been terrible.
Moving on to the secondary, defensive backs and the safeties. I really was hoping this would be an A or even an A+ for the Chargers at this point in the season. It hasn't been. Brandon Flowers, for whatever reason, whether it's health, he had one atrocious game. And even last week, in a missed tackle that he made, was just awful on the effort. Verrett has not been able to stay healthy. But I think one of the most pleasant surprises for the Chargers this year has been the play of Patrick Robinson coming in.
Right.
I think Stevie Williams has been a lot better this year than he was last year when he's come in. So the backups come in. B for backups.
B for backups.
B for B, because they've kind of saved what could have been a disaster with all the injuries in the secondary. Weddle's playing at his usual A- level. I got a B.
I'm going to go with C, which could stand for either cornerbacks or coward, because I'm upset with the effort that Eric Weddle has given this year, and I'm upset that Brandon Flowers seems to play half of the games, and I'm upset that Jason Verrett never gets on the field. He never gets on the field. At what point do we start comparing Jason Verrett to Larry English? What point do we start saying he needs to get on the field to not be a draft bust? What point do we start comparing him to Ryan Matthews? As you said, Patrick Robinson, Stevie Williams, they've been fantastic. Eric Weddle has been half-assing it. The strong safety position hasn't been giving you much. And like you said, this group is so below expectations that I can't just give them a B.
All right, now we move on to special teams. And if you would just hand me that red one there at the end, and I will wow, special teams have been bad.
If you want to hold that up for me, my notes under special teams were a pretty simple. Josh Lambo's been okay, and
he kicked a game winner, given a second chance.
Right. Josh Lambo's been okay, and I think that's the highlight of the special teams.
Coverage teams, I mean, awful.
Right, coverage has been bad. Cyphers
return game has been just like non-existent. They don't even get a grade because
they
just don't do anything.
They don't exist. They catch the ball most of the time. Cyphers still has a cannon, but he's not adjusting to the fact that the rest of the team around him needs him to not fire cannons down the field. So overall, special teams can't be higher than an F unless you really like what you've seen from Lambo.
All right, finally, coaching. And
I'm going to hand this red one back to you.
You're going to hand the red? No.
All right.
Give me the minus.
All right.
Coaching is not just game days. If this was just about decisions made on Sunday, this would probably be a D- for me because I don't like the decisions that Mike McCoy makes. But it's also about figuring out what to do when you get a lot of injuries and you got to plug guys in different holes and getting offensive linemen who have never started ready to play in positions they've never played. This isn't just Mike McCoy. This is Joe DeAlessandris. This is John Pagano. This is the entire staff. And they've had some difficulties that they've had to overcome. And I'm giving them credit for that, which raises the overall grade for me to a C-.
I'm not far from you, actually. I got them at a D+. And I acknowledge that Monday through Saturday, this is a very good coaching staff. They come up with very good plays. They draw up very good plays. Even their strategies are not terrible going into the game, but the play calling is bad. The adjustments are bad. The aggressiveness is god-awful on the part of Mike McCoy. John Pagano is who he is at this point, and Frank Reich is the offensive version of him. They're both guys that are well-liked and draw up fantastic plays, but can't get it done. Their play calling is absolutely horrid.
All right, do you want to do an overall grade then through a quarter of the season? I didn't assign.
No. We can do an overall. We can do an overall grade.
But I think it's pretty easy.
It's easy. They're 2-2.
It's a C.
It's a C.
2-2, right?
They've had two great games, and debatable there. But they've had two good games. They've had two bad games. If they play well against the Steelers tonight and come out with a 7 to 10 point win, you easily bump that up to a B. However, if they lose to the Steelers tonight, you're probably down in the D territory. So it has to be a C at this point.
This is a 2-grade swing game.
Yes.
That's how big of a game it is.
Yeah, you can go anywhere from B to D.
Because of our technical difficulties with the microphone, if you saw earlier, we can't bring Ferris in with his questions, but he did send them to me.
Okay.
So our three questions start with 1A for John.
Oh.
When you look back at your Bengals preseason assessment, do you feel a sense of remorse, perhaps tinged with regret? This is our running commentary of the Bengals fan Ferris and John, who didn't show enough respect to the Bengals.
My rating of the Bengals was the Bengals stink, and my reasoning behind that was that they didn't have enough to counteract how terrible Andy Dalton is. What I didn't really factor in, and what I probably should have, because he's one of my favorite coaches in the league, is Hugh Jackson. And just how good Hugh Jackson is at building an offense to a certain guy's strengths, avoiding the weaknesses, beautiful, brilliant play calling. He's the antithesis of Frank Reich as an offensive coordinator, and he has helped bring out all of the good parts about Andy Dalton that made him a first-round pick and eliminated most of the weaknesses.
That being said,
I have remorse. I'm wrong.
That being said, though, the first real question, he says, the last time the Bengals were 5-0, they went to the Super Bowl. That was 1988.
Okay.
He says the road in the AFC still goes to New England. Can the Bengals beat the Pats in Foxborough? You want to do this one together? On three, can the Bengals beat the Pats in the playoffs in Foxborough? Here we go. 1, 2, 3 for Ferris. No. There we go. Okay, that's
done.
Question 1. Question 2.
Are these all Bengals questions?
No.
Okay.
We're a third of the season in. Which teams can we officially eliminate from playoff contention?
Oh, there's a handful of them.
There are a handful,
and
but not a ton.
You can start with the Detroit Lions.
That's an easy one, yeah.
Because they're awful. They're 0-5 at this point.
And getting worse every week.
Yeah, in the AFC West, it's a little bit trickier.
That's the question I want to answer. Are the Chiefs out of it now that they're 1-4 and Jamal Charles looks like he's got a torn ACL and out for the season? Are they done? Or is this a team that I thought was more than just Jamal Charles and had a chance to be a contender for a playoff spot? You know, they had a tough schedule, but then they just blew a bad one at home yesterday against the Bears.
They're not done yet. And the reason I say that is not any faith in the rest of the team. It's my faith that running backs are a dime a dozen. And yes, Jamal Charles is special, but if they have another guy on their depth chart who gets a chance and performs well, that's a solid team again. Everyone's looking at, if you get rid of Jamal Charles, like it's a big zero there at running back. It's not necessarily. They're going to bring guys in. If they can find one that works, if they can find a way to build that offense around DeAnthony Thomas as their running back, they can find ways to be special, to pick up huge chunks of yards, to be dynamic. And that defense, which is underperformed, but we know is still good, if they turn that around, they can win 5, 6, 7 games in a row.
Top of my head, eliminating now, and I don't like to eliminate teams lightly, but Dolphins, Jags, Bucks, 49ers, Saints.
Yeah.
I know that's a tough one.
That division is yeah.
But I think they're
they're behind the Falcons and Panthers. They're done.
They're done as well.
The entire AFC South.
Someone's going to win it, though.
The Colts.
Titans, I can't even eliminate the Titans yet, can I?
You can't eliminate anyone in the AFC South, or you have to eliminate
all
of them.
I eliminated the Jags already, I guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, they have just as good a chance as the Texans, the Colts, that division is just trash.
Yeah, Dolphins are definitely out. But other than that, I think everyone, Browns, they still got a shot at, even the Bears with back-to-back wins. Even though it looked like they were kind of flushing the toilet on the season a couple of weeks ago, they've come back with 2 straight wins, so I'm not ready to completely bury them yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, just about everyone still has that chance, could catch fire, but there are some teams just aren't going to have a chance. As good as they've played the last couple weeks, I don't think the Rams have a chance of making it into the playoffs. Their road through that division is just too good, and they're too mediocre of a team.
All right, last question. You're a big Hollywood producer. Think Brian Grazier, who wants to make an NFL movie. You can choose any person, topic, event to cover. What's your movie going to be about?
Oh, Lord. Probably inside the New England Patriots, the relationship between Belichick and Tom Brady. However, I don't want to pass on the opportunity to make a Phillip Rivers movie. You can have the family part is kind of like a nice little sitcom. He comes home, he's got 12 kids and 8 puppies, and then he goes and he plays football. And the idea of Matthew McConaughey playing Phillip Rivers is just too perfect to pass up.
I was thinking maybe a Jerry Jones biopic.
No.
Kind of behind the scenes of the Dallas Cowboys and the rise to first the triplets era of Aikman, Irvin, and then all the way to today.
Well, you got to pick someone to play Jerry Jones now.
That's a good point. Jerry Jones.
Can Michael Caine do an American
Michael
accent?
Caine, yes, perfect.
As long as he can do that
sure
little bit of Southern
I'm
twang,
sure
he'd
but
be
no,
fine.
but my real answer is actually going to be the commissioner. Now,
Roger Goodell.
He's not that interesting, but all these controversies swirling around him, I think, could make for a fascinating movie.
It certainly could. I feel like it would be similar to that Draft Day movie that Kevin Costner.
You need to punch him up a little bit.
Yeah, you need something more exciting than.
We definitely need to take some creative liberties with the commish. If we're
absolutely, drugs and women and the whole thing.
Okay, before we go, usually we preview the next game.
Right.
Since they are playing tonight, we've kind of been doing that, but we won't be on again until after they visit the Green Bay Packers.
We can preview
Sunday.
that game in 5 seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
The Packers are the best team in football. Aaron Rodgers, or the second best. Aaron Rodgers is the best player in football. They don't lose at home. Their defense is significantly better than anyone gives them credit for, and the Chargers don't stand a chance.
All right, Aaron Rodgers turned the ball over 3 times yesterday. First time since 2009.
He has one bad game every year. Last year was against the Bills. This year was against
and they still
the Rams.
Won by double digits.
And they still won by double digits. Next week, he's going to do that thing he does after he plays the bad game where he's got to come and prove the doubters wrong, and he's going to throw for 500 yards.
Hold on. The Chargers, we were saying this last year about the Seahawks when they came to town. The Chargers really have no chance. You get obliterated in the preseason by the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Best defense. And then they went out and they won that game. Now,
right.
Obviously, that was a home game. This is a road game, and that's a different situation. But there's got to be something the Chargers can actually do to pull off the stunner and beat the Packers at Lambeau, right?
I mean, I guess they could hit Aaron Rodgers with a car before the game. Outside of that, it's not going to happen. Look at the Seahawks this year. Look at the Seahawks during the regular season last year. They're a team that's built to win playoff games, built to win games in December. Their defense, their ball control, they're running it down the opponent's throats. They're not. I mean, the Packers are great at everything. They rush the passer. They have a great secondary. They throw the ball. They can run the ball. Their special teams are fantastic.
I don't disagree, but we're not going to have the 16-0 Patriots against the 16-0 Packers in the Super Bowl.
There are teams that are better than the Chargers that will beat the Packers at some point.
All right, if you say so. If you say so. I don't know who they are right now.
I don't know who they are
They're going
either.
to lose at some point.
Aaron Rodgers is going to get hurt at some point because he does that every year too. And they'll play with, Matt Flynn or whoever their backup quarterback is. They'll lose 2 games and they'll finish 14-2. And, and I'm looking forward to a Packers-Patriots Super Bowl.
All right, John, thanks for coming in. A little preview edition of Bolts, Brown Bag, Chargers, and the Steelers Monday Night Football. Thanks for joining us. This has been Bolts, Brown Bag only on 10news.com.